I'll open the meeting for the Carver Finance Committee for March 7, 2022. Joint meeting tonight with the Capital Outlay Committee. Can we please rise for the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, you can.
Okay. I'd like to call to order the Capital Outlay Committee for tonight, March 7th, 2023, at 7:05 p.m. 22. Sorry, I got the budget 23 in my mind.
Okay. Meeting's being recorded by Area 58. I see nobody from the public. Well, not nobody, but I'm assuming you don't have anything you want to say. Town Administrator, Finance Director update? Yes, sir.
All right, quick update on the warrant. So the warrant's in its final stage, draft stage. It's with KP Law right now, so it's just missing the numbers, so we finalize all the numbers. But I'll get it out to everybody tomorrow,
Okay,
okay, the final draft.
excellent.
So we ask that you don't like share it on Facebook, because then people have different copies of it, and they think that's what it is, and it might have already changed, all right? So we'll get it to you. That's
Typically, these copies all say draft, and
Yeah,
the
correct.
committee has always kept it close to the vest anyhow, because we know it's not a final copy.
Yep.
When does it go to print?
When we get it back from council, and then put in the numbers. I don't know the date that goes to print, but we'll have it ready.
So what we get tomorrow will not have final numbers in it. We'll
No.
have draft numbers in it.
Yeah, it'll have some draft numbers,
Okay.
right?
Correct.
Correct, she says.
That's not unusual, we've done that before too. We've had meetings just before town meeting where we've taken up articles and voted on them. But typically, the numbers are finalized when it goes to print, when it's posted on the website, which is usually we've acted on most of it by then. But there's still some stuff that has not been acted on.
Yeah, quite a bit. We haven't discussed free cash once.
Yeah, well,
You can say if that's okay.
we'll have some free cash stuff tonight.
So here's her update.
DOR has the number, but we're waiting for them to certify it.
How long does that take?
She had a couple questions today, and I responded to her, so I'm just waiting for her to give it to her boss for approval.
So are we comfortable that the number that we have approximated for free cash is correct?
It's gonna be in that ballpark. It's, it might not be exactly $2 million, and the capital committee get 935, but it's gonna be in that ballpark.
Okay.
Do we know why it's so late in the process that that we're certifying free cash?
Without throwing anybody under the bus, I'd rather not say at this point.
We know exactly why, so I know you're
so-
trying to get an answer that's not gonna be good, so.
Well, yeah, but I'm trying to, so I don't know exactly why, and I'd like to understand better why, because these numbers are available to us before the first of the year typically. So I don't know why.
So you had a previous finance director who didn't do anything after April 1st when she gave her notice. You had an interim person come in and do work from June through the middle of September. Some things were booked and some things weren't, and you're not finding out until after you start the process and you're starting to get this stuff in. There's mechanicals behind the scenes, and I was like, why is this number this? And I get told by the treasurer collector, well, I have to upload this, or I have to manually do these journal entries. And there's nobody else in that office that did what Meg did. She never trained anybody, so no one knew, oh, this is why this is like this, or this is why. She kept all her work close to the vest.
So
You seem surprised.
I'm shocked. So
I
this
don't
is
know
Meg's
why-
fault?
I don't know why you should be at all.
So this is Meg's fault? That's what
It's
we're
a
saying.
combination of Meg's fault, having a gap in between, and not knowing who booked what, when. So
Free cash can't be certified till after July 1. Meg wasn't here July 1. So,
But there was entries that were not made from April first to the end of June, and then still not made when you had the interim person in here. So I'm finding it out as I'm working the books, balancing the receivables. There's a lot of things that, you know, we had a negative receivable for real estate, which means we took in $1.6 million more than we supposedly booked, but we didn't. The commitments were never booked.
So did we close the year okay? I mean, did the auditors say anything? Is our year closed?
The year's closed.
Okay,
The
but we still have
auditors- the-
entries that,
There was just late entries that needed to be made that were, they came up as I was, you know, putting stuff together, like,
would they be considered like material entries that the auditors would have picked up on?
I think the auditors should have picked up on the $1.6 million of negative receivables, which means we took in more money. They were here the first week I was here, so if I didn't notice it until a couple, you know, probably mid-November, they should have noticed that number at least and said, hey, why is this in the negative?
Did we get isn't it usually March that we get the auditor's report? Did we get that this year?
We were not invited to that meeting with the select board.
So we don't get the handouts either?
We got,
Usually I thought
we
in
have a
March.
joint
they-
meeting every year when the audit comes out. We were not invited to it this last
They
year.
don't have it completed either.
Okay.
And that's
I'm
when
just
they had
asking.
the books were printed. They were all spiral bound and everything else. But we usually typically have a joint meeting. When the audit report comes out, the FinCom joins the select board. That has happened when Ron was the chair, and it did not happen last year.
For
We-
FY '21, because they're not finished with it. They were also running into the same situation. Things weren't done. Capital projects are, you know, you have to do your fixed assets. Fixed assets weren't completed. That should be something that would have been done as soon as the warrant was printed last year. She wasn't here, the interims didn't do it. I had to work with the schools, because I'm not sure what the schools actually, I mean, I could see that there's a capital item that was $25,000, but when they turn it over to us for payment, it just says CP purchase order, whatever. So you've gotta go back to the purchase order, and the purchase order says, see the invoice. Well, you know, so it's like a lot of background work that you have to go physically pull certain invoices out to see, is this a capital item, or was this a school bus contract?
Not for nothing, we still got how many $1,000 in the 2019 snow budget?
I think it's 130.
$130,000 in the 2019 snow account. Oh, I don't think it's gonna snow anymore in 2019. So there was a lot of stuff that was left behind and overlooked that we're finding out now, which is why we're in the pickle that we're in, is stuff not getting done on time, because she's been dealing through mountains of paperwork, trying to find out how numbers got to where they were. How can we possibly have $130,000 in a 2019 snow account? Wouldn't that be taken out the following year? It's still sitting there.
You have
We still have money in the COA study committee, another process that was done 2 years ago. Because Savory Moore did that. We had people calling up, we had people doing surveys. Remember all that? That whole thing came out, a big COA survey. There's still to this day money in that account to do that survey. Survey's long gone, long finished, and there's money sitting there. 13,000? You can thank Beth, because
Yeah,
Beth
that
is the
was
one that dug a
13.
lot of this up.
19.
19,000. 19,000.
There's 140 in a capital maintenance account
I know.
from
And we don't even know what that's
2015.
for.
Well, it's for, when you had an old capital outlay committee, they had that money set aside to do capital maintenance, I guess during the year, I'm assuming, but it just keeps rolling forward,
Okay,
so.
haven't been touched since 2015.
awesome. And then we wonder why we end up in these situations where we're looking to maybe we'll bond some money, we don't have enough in free cash, but we got all this money floating around in these other accounts that doesn't need to be there anymore.
And I can't speak for how the process works. I know when I did it in other communities, at the end of the year, I would ask the departments, are you finished with this capital item? Can I close it out? It appears it might have just been the accounting office saying, oh, that money's still there. In the article, we're gonna push it forward. Cause I don't have any backup to the journal entry that did and this was done in the accounting office by the assistant accountant.
So it's my understanding that some of that was done on an annual basis. How comprehensive it was done, I don't know. I don't work in the finance department, but that's how we found the money to do the Plymouth Street water line last year, was by closing out these accounts that had money in them where it was no longer needed. So, at the time I asked the question, how much money's sitting in accounts unused, and was told that the number was probably close to $2 million.
Doesn't
So,
surprise me.
that's how we found the money to do the projects. Well, no, it may not be
I don't know,
anymore.
it's
We might
that
not
high.
now, but
May not be
there's quite
anymore.
there is a lot of money.
But there's a lot of money in those accounts that's been earmarked for other projects in the past that wasn't utilized, like there was
Well, the projects are done.
some of
So
them.
some of it is leftover money it was overfunded. Like there's $3,000 for a roof at the fire station. Now, I don't know if it's an odd number, I think you said.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming the job was done, and this was what was budgeted that was over what they needed, so it's still sitting there.
So it's from FY17 and it's $3,172 to replace Fire Station 2 shingles.
So that would indicate, with that kind of a number, wouldn't you think that the original number was, let's just say 10,000? And the real number came in at $6,874, and this is what's left over.
Of course.
So that should be closed out. We're done with that project. And these small numbers add up to some serious money. And the one that really floored me was the snow budget from 2019. Snow. This is 22.
So, again, just because Adam seems a little like, doesn't understand how it flowed, that $130,000, if you look at the article from 2019, was for a snow and ice deficit. So it shouldn't even been put in the budget. There's $250,000 for a health insurance reserve fund. Well, if it's a reserve, it shouldn't be in the budget. It should have its own revolving account that you're continuing to add stuff in there as you go along. There's 3 different health insurance line items. Health insurance reserve, health insurance restructuring, and health insurance mitigation. There's 3, total $600,000.
So-
Not to mention the health insurance fund also.
Are these all things that should have been caught in an audit?
The thing is, there's no consistency right now, so nobody knows what these numbers are for.
So that's understandable. In transition, things are gonna be lost in the transition, right? I mean, I know
But
that.
this is years' worth of loss in the transit.
So, yes and no, right? So, things are gonna be lost in transition, like some of the issues we're dealing with right now with the warrant. I watched a select board meeting from last week. There's articles in the warrant that nobody knows who authored them and who submitted them for consideration, right? It's just stuff that gets lost in transition, apparently. I'm not sure how, but it does. These types of things, if they were a concern, I would think would show up in an audit. And we have not had a bad audit in 5 years that I'm aware of. Since I got on the FinCom, we've had nothing but a phenomenal audit. So I think it's a little irresponsible to tonight suggest that this has all been mismanaged for 5 years, because it hasn't been. And we've had phenomenal audits. Every time, however long I've been on this FinCom, I've never once listened to our auditor come in and suggest that funds are mismanaged and that our accounts are in disarray.
They never said they were mismanaged. I never said they were mismanaged. I said this stuff was overlooked. And the auditors add 1 and 1 and get 2. And as long as the accounts come out balanced, the auditors don't dig that deep. They don't come in here and go through every piece of paper in that office. You mean to tell me that an auditor's gonna pick up that there's an overage in the shingle account for the fire station? How is an auditor gonna pick that up?
So I will not sit here and pretend to be an auditor. Others can do that. I'm not gonna do that. All I will say is that there are competent professionals that do the job that did not say this was an issue. They never pointed out this was an issue.
Okay, so where's the money come from?
It's hard for me to now play Monday morning quarterback and suggest that these accounts have not been handled correctly for 5 years.
Why is the money still sitting in them?
They look at this stuff for a
Yeah.
week. They get balance sheets, they get trial balances, they look at it for a week and they determine that we are either in balance or out of balance. Or if you go through each fund, everything balances to 0. Your assets equal your fund equity and your liabilities. So if everything balances, they turn it into general municipal accounting into an audit, which is a more in-depth, putting things in different categories. But for them to go and look at each individual line item in your expense account, they don't do that.
You don't, they
Yeah.
go by what you tell them.
This was, when I, is it okay if I say something?
Yeah.
So when I was looking at this today, it's something that's on the trial like the detailed trial balance, so if it was in a financial statement, it's just gonna roll up as like a total expense line or a total asset line. So I don't think they drilled down and saw at town meeting 2017. I think they're just seeing a total dollar amount for a reserve.
They look into anything that's over $20,000, make sure that it's procured properly, to make sure that it was something that was voted at town meeting, things like that. Make sure that the vendors are all, we have all their W-9s. They don't go into line item by line item. I give them, well, I didn't because I wasn't here, but I would normally give my auditors vendors that are paid more than $20,000, and they go from there. And then they pick certain receipts that are over a certain amount of money, and, you know, so they're picking 20 to 30 items, both on the revenue and the expense side.
Yeah,
And
they'll
just
just sample it based on the, I used to be an auditor, so what they'll do is they'll take, like a certain percentage of the dollar amount, and they'll want a sample of that dollar amount. So they might not catch every single one of these line items.
It's not a forensic audit. They're not looking for receipts and line items. And no auditor ever put that finance department through that.
I think they're looking, we're looking at, they're not looking at town policy in some things. Where we're looking at town policy now, like, we put money in an account in 2017, why is it still there? They're just looking at it, that money was properly put in there in 2017, and the money's still there and it balances.
That's right. Now, I'm not saying that anybody was
project-
incompetent, don't misunderstand me. I am saying that we've come up with a lot of money that's sitting in accounts that should not still be sitting in those accounts. Now, for whatever reason that happened, we know there was a previous town administrator that liked to have a little slush fund here and there that could cover stuff. And I'm willing to bet that some of this money was intentionally left right sitting where it was because it was a rainy day thing. Now, I don't know that for a fact. I'm going on some assumptions here from past experience. So, all I know is we now know exactly what we know, and Sue's cleaning up the mess. And that's what it is, a mess.
And then, if it's okay if I talk
Go
again.
ahead.
So the other thing too, which I was kind of questioning, is maybe some of these projects just haven't been done yet. Because some of them are totally round dollar amounts, like bleachers at the high school. I'm thinking maybe we just haven't gotten to that project and it's a few years old.
So that was how, some of it was explained to me that way last year, because there's like a ceiling tile account for these ceiling tiles when they get water damage, so they can get them replaced. Those funds are set aside and not meant to be used in 1 year. There's other accounts that are like rolling accounts, like the bus account, for instance.
Yeah.
We put $100,000 a year into it, but the bus only costs $80,000, and that's so that over 4 years you accumulate enough to buy another bus in excess, right? So that's the way some of those funds are intentionally managed, is to have money there on an ongoing or rolling basis. But again, we looked at some of this. I didn't look at it, but I asked others to. I asked Meg to look at it last year because this was how I suspected we were going to be able to pay for the water line, and it's exactly where we found the money to pay for the water line.
Well, it's not where we found all the money for it, but we found some.
Yeah,
So we had a conversation with the capital committee, and Jim asked, how can you put this money away? I wouldn't leave it in a budget. I would put it in a reserve under the capital outlay stabilization fund and label it HVAC library or bus, and you want to put money aside each year for those purposes. They each have their own line item under the stabilization. When the money is available, you vote it out to pay for the product, rather than, because right here, there's also $65,000 that was put aside in 2018 to paint the library, and no money ever came out of it. So that obviously the library wasn't painted.
Yeah.
So,
The same with the school bleachers that I saw, it's from FY17. So it's 5 years ago, and
it might
are
be.
we really gonna redo the bleachers? I don't know. Like, I think we need to reach out to all these departments now.
And that's what she would do typically, is, I guess, she told me last year. So. So we think we'll have free cash soon, though.
Yes.
So do you wanna go into your capital outlay? I guess there's been some changes from the last discussion we had, so we can roll into that if you want. Unless you want us to get this COA out of the way first? Is that something quick and easy?
It is quick and easy, yeah.
Okay,
Hopefully.
why don't we do that?
Okay, so clearly I came in late in the game. I didn't have a chance to really meet with the department heads and go over their budget needs. That was all done before I got here. But things have been coming up to me over the past 8 weeks that I've been here, 9 weeks. And one of the things is the Council on Aging. I think you, Adam, you mentioned that they run the Council on Aging on such a small budget. Well, there's a reason for that, because there's needs there that haven't been addressed. And one of the needs is that I found that the outreach worker is massively overloaded with work. It's a part-time position. She gets a $30,000 grant to pay for her position, her part-time position. I'm proposing that we make that a full-time position at the cost of $19,993. And some of the issues that I think it may have stemmed from the pandemic or a little before that. But now seniors are they're staying home a lot more, and they're not going out, and they're not engaging. They got into that routine from being stuck in the house, protected from the pandemic. And so there's this need to really get into the outreach to get to them and see what services they may need. Sometimes it's delayed because it's only a part-time position. And I feel strongly, as does the Council on Aging Director, that it should be a full-time position. Most towns, it is a full-time position. In Kingston, where I came from, was a full-time position and a half-time position in the town. So it's something that I think is gonna do great service to the seniors if this goes through. And again, basically getting a full-time person for under $20,000 out of the town's coffers. So that's the first thing. Second thing is similar. We have a Shine coordinator. It's a volunteer position, and they assist the seniors in all kinds of things. And Beth, you probably know more about what they do than I do.
I'm not sure what the Shine coordinators. Oh, do you mean like they assist them, helping them find like homemaking, Meals on Wheels,
Yes,
stuff out in the
and
community?
even doing
Yeah.
paperwork for benefits or,
Yep, taxes,
or other
health
things,
insurance,
taxes,
yeah.
And so that's a volunteer position in this town. And again, in many towns, it's a paid position. I'm looking to make it a stipend position of $7,500 because it's kind of hit or miss with what we have now with the volunteers coming and going. And there's really no consistency year to year with these volunteers. So that's the second thing. So those two come to an amount of $27,493 to put those together, and that would be in the salary line item. The other and the third part of this is that we have the Meals on Wheels program. I think it's called something else here, but they go out and bring meals to the seniors every day, and again, it's done with volunteers, and volunteers come and go. And more are going than coming to help us. And one of the reasons that's often mentioned is that we don't reimburse for mileage, for them to use their own vehicles and their own gas. Obviously now it's coming to a head where gas is $4.25 a gallon. And there's a concern that this is gonna have an impact on the seniors getting their meals, and an impact on the Council on Aging to keep these volunteers working, so to speak, on behalf of the seniors and getting those meals out. So working with the director and the miles, calculated how many miles it is to run the daily drop-offs and things. It would come to about $600 a month total for all of them put together in mileage reimbursement. So that's $7,200 per year. So I'm requesting that we We put a mileage reimbursement. It's funny, we pay mileage reimbursement to our employees who get paid. But when they use their own vehicle, we pay on top of that mileage reimbursement. We don't pay them anything. They work for free and they don't even get reimbursement, so. So I think it's important to do that, to keep them coming in and being engaged with the seniors. Because it's not only dropping off a meal, it's also putting a face-to-face with the senior and saying, hey, do you need anything? You know, can we help you with anything? Let us know, and they can see if there's an issue going on there when they drop off that meal, so. So those are my three things. It's the part-time to full-time position, the stipend, and the mileage reimbursement.
What's the total increase in that budget?
So in that budget would be $7,200, total would be the $27,493 plus the $7,200.
34,693.
$34,693.
Can I ask you another question? Did we increase this budget last time as well for postage or the post office?
I think there's a
No, we
little,
moved something from another line item up to the postage.
Okay, I just didn't know if it changed since our spreadsheet came out.
And so where are we gonna get the 34,693 from?
Snow budget from 2017.
yeah, what do we say, so?
So based on our revenue stream and what we need above the line, and we did a split between the school and the town side, there's about I didn't print it. So there's like $31,000, so that we have a delta on after the split.
So this is 34.9, so 34.6, so we're still short.
Health insurance came in lower than the 5% as well.
Can I ask a couple of
Go ahead.
questions? Okay, so the mileage, I totally get that, but do we pay out the federal rate, the 58.5
We do,
cents?
yeah.
Okay. And then my other question is, how come, I get the Council on Aging does that, but how come we don't ever reach out to an elder service group? Because don't they also deliver Meals on Wheels to people?
I'm not sure. I mean, that's something.
I thought Old Colony wasn't that far from here, Old Colony
So we
Elder
get a
Service.
grant from O'Connelly for the food,
Okay, so you're
Yeah.
already getting
Yep.
payment. So I believe, and you could check
but not for the
into it,
delivery.
but you can also leave like an envelope there saying, you know, thank you, and then if they want to send you a donation, they can for their Meal on Wheel. Do we do that?
I don't think
I
so.
believe we do,
We do.
Oh, do we?
Okay.
What about-
or it was the policy, I don't know
It
if they're
was.
still doing it, that was the policy.
Yeah,
I
you
know
don't
at the
get a lot of
senior
money
center,
for it, but
they-
you might get a little bit to offset some of the mileage.
We're not gonna get 34,000.
No, but you might get a couple $100.
Are you comfortable with that number, Sue?
Yeah.
Bob, you're
Yeah,
all
we
right
had
with it?
talked about this, yeah.
Adam?
Yeah, I mean, I echo my sentiments when they came in and asked for the money, that it's insanely low, right? But now we're taking a $20,000 budget and turning it into a $55,000 budget or $54,000 budget. Are there other considerations to be had with respect to hiring a full-time employee like that? Because I'm assuming the 19 and change is just salary. It doesn't include, you know, benefits and all that sort of stuff. I mean, we went through cuts and, you know, modifications and all sorts of crazy stuff before COVID and during COVID to limit these types of liabilities, right? So what's the sort of potential cost to the town as a result of hiring
So
another
the only
FTE?
other cost would be really the insurance. If the employee takes the insurance.
Is that a
So,
new
and-
hire?
and
So is that
again,
the end of
what's
the new
so-
hire 50/50?
Yes.
And what Sue just mentioned is that insurance came in lower than we predicted, or that we've been told, from 5% to 3%.
What
So
is
there's
the
money
family
there.
plan going for now?
I'm sorry?
How much is a family plan for the health insurance now?
I don't know, I don't take the health
I
insurance.
don't either. Somebody here might take it.
Do you know what percentage our fringe is on the salaries?
Do you know
You
what
know,
that
sometimes
is?
you could take, you make
Like
20,000 and 20%.
50,000, including like the retirement and,
No, I mean, like, what percentage? Can you, like, allocate a percentage to a head to
right, so
figure
if
it
I
out?
took a percentage of that like the 5% insurance increase, that's what you're talking about, and bring it down to,
No, like in total, so
I
say,
don't think they break it out that way.
you know, like, so
Yeah.
I'm just, say you pay 100,000 in salaries, and then you look at your fringe benefit line, that's 25,000, you know, about 25%. You know, that's, usually you have the same percentage going forward every year.
I do not know that number.
Yeah, in other words, if they take the health insurance, it means the health insurance budget's also going up by
Yeah.
$5,000-$10,000, whatever it works out to be.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's additional 5 or 10,000 that needs to be found to go along with the 34.
Yeah.
I know the $19,000 doesn't seem like a lot, but I know that every department in this town begs for an extra FTE. Begs, for head count. So it's kind of that's my concern. I don't know what the right answer is. It's a lot to absorb, but that's my concern.
Well, police department has one
Yeah.
this year, and so does DPW or O&M.
Yeah, it's just, I think, honestly, I think if you probably went to every department head, most of them would, a lot of them say, we need another body, we need another body, we need another body. So it's just one of those things where that's when my brain's going.
Anybody else?
Just that, I think we've established that our council on aging, if you compare it to area councils on aging, is probably half-staffed, if that. So that if you're gonna stack it up on priority comparing to other departments, I would say that they probably could make the best case of any department that we have. And, you know, so my main concern is making sure that we have the money in the budget to cover it. As long as we have the money in the budget to cover it, I can support this.
And we do.
Can I just, I have one more question, sorry. So I know it's being covered 30,000 with a grant, but how long do we have that grant for? Are we gonna only have it for 3
No,
more
it's-
years?
it's-
Every
It's
year.
a permanent grant.
Permanent
Yeah.
forever? Okay. I just don't wanna see us get caught where 2 years from now, we don't have that grant anymore, we've just taken on more salaries.
Yeah, as long as I've been in municipal accounting, they get their formula grant.
Okay, thank you, I didn't know that.
Anybody else?
Okay, so I'll make a motion to recommend to the select board the addition to the Council on Aging FY '23 budget, which was originally $144,461 to $179,154. That's made up of the mileage for 7,200 and the salary, the salary and
Stipend.
the stipend and the salary for 27,493.
Need a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to increase the Council on Aging budget by $34,693 to $179,054. And to make that recommendation of the select board. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Okay, I'm not sure. Now we're gonna have to do this with a hand count. All those in favor? Opposed?
I'm gonna accuse myself.
I was gonna say abstaining. Okay, so it's 8?
701.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for looking into that.
Thank you.
I'm gonna hold you the okey-dokey on that, so, you know, I gotta be honest with you, I'm not crazy about we think we're gonna have enough, and I'd like to see, I'd like to see numbers, I trust you, but, yeah, I'd like to see, you know,
Give them some numbers.
numbers. After the vote, you bring out the numbers.
You didn't ask for it. So under the health insurance line item, we're at $5,061,000.
Thanks, Sue.
That was voted at 5%, and once we meaning Ron and I got a consensus budget, together, that came in at 3%, so that health insurance line item has some excess in there.
Okay. Is this gonna be the final split, 32 and a half, 67 and a half?
If the selectmen approve it.
Really?
Yeah.
That's from putting the common expenses, the health insurance above the line?
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a break in the health insurance premium, so that saved us even more.
Exactly.
Good, I like it. Okay, with that out of the way, now we will,
Will that change if it goes from 5 to 3%?
We just left that number alone. What we were thinking that if as things were moving, we would do what we just did just now, and if we don't need it, part of the wording in the warrant to put that money in a health insurance reserve account for future, and then move that 250 that I was telling you that's in the budget also into the health insurance reserve, so we can start building a reserve in case our health insurance does start to go up. We can have a little bit of money to it would only work 1 year, but at least we'd have something there in case the insurance really hit the roof.
Okay, thank you.
I think one of the problems with the insurance is that during the pandemic, as you may recall, they stopped doing surgeries. And so a lot of our rates are based on the amount of money that's spent for the participants. And so we're fearful that next year, now that, oh yay, I can go get my plastic surgery done, and it's gonna start hitting again, so.
right.
So by putting this aside, I think it'll give us a little cushion.
Yeah, you're right, all elective surgeries were, even in the month of January and February, were closed down. They're open now.
They're open now. So what they gave us in premium reduction, they're gonna take it away in the next setup. Okay, the floor is yours, Madam Chair.
Okay. So first, I just wanted to make sure I introduce everybody who's here tonight for the Capital Outlay Committee. I just want to introduce everyone that's here tonight on the Capital Outlay Committee. We have Marie Zeigman. She is the co-chair with me on the committee. Jim Hoffman, who's also a member on the committee from the Board of Selectmen, and Andy Cardarelli, who's also on the board with us, and he is from the school committee. So I want to say we did meet last week, and we went back through the capital outlay, because when we met with Sue and Bob, there were some additional funds found to look at potentially not bonding or to bond, and to look into that a little bit more. So I put together a little handout for everybody to view. So I just wanted to kind of go through what we did and what we saw. So what we were trying to do, our charter, we believed, was to make sure we had a balanced budget for Carver for all the capital. And to ensure that all our towns' departments had all the means they needed. So that's sort of what we were looking at. So we did have some changes that we found. So the first thing that we had done is when we met with Sue and Bob, we found out there was a little bit more revenue that was gonna come in, or funds for the revenue. The piece that I wanted to hold off on this meeting tonight because I wanted to make sure free cash was certified. I have a feeling that could change some of this funding. I just want to make sure I'm upfront with that right away. But this is where we're at tonight. Hopefully, when we see the free cash and we run the numbers again, this could change. So, some of the other stuff we were looking at was the HVAC for the library and whether or not that could wait one more year. We hate to move that off another year, but we're thinking that that may be what we need to do. Sue was able to find some stuff on ARPA funding. I looked some up as well myself. Some of our surrounding towns near us are using ARPA funding for HVACs as well as radio systems in their towns. So that's a possibility for our town to apply for funding on those. The other thing that we were able to remove from our original list we had was the dump truck for O&M. Ended up being purchased out of the finance transfer reserve in FY22. So that was $110,000 that we took off. I did speak with Craig Weston, and he is okay with us moving the rehab brush breaker to FY24. He had initially asked us if we wanted to do that. He was totally okay with it. We were going to leave it, but trying to play with the numbers, we decided it might be better off for the town to push that off one more year. So part of the funding source, which I will kind of have to lean on Sue for, is this ARPA funding that we received for $615,000. Now, I'm not sure how we're supposed to spend that or if it's designated to anything, but if not, we were thinking we could use that towards some of the capital for next year.
So so I'm gonna address that, right?
Yes, thank you.
So the board, the select board, I'm using Board of Selectmen, select board had talked about the ARPA funds twice at the, some recent meetings. And one of the suggestions was that we kind of go slow using those funds until it builds up. I don't get a sense that they'd be apt to use it for a capital project like this, if there's other funding available. And yeah, and I guess I'm gonna leave it at that. So I think when we're looking, Sue and I get together to look at all these other accounts that may be closed out and take the edge off what is due for the funding for the capital items. I think that's the way we'd rather go.
Yeah, I think that would be great too. So I just want to make, so there are those pieces still open here about the funding sources. So we may have to meet on capital again one more time, but we still wanted to present this tonight. So the next sheet which was something we had met on last week, was our initial targeted funds were up to $2,153,257. Plus, if we use the $650,000, that would be the total funds of $2,007,000 for FY23.
But now you can't take that
Yes.
600,000.
Exactly.
So we're back to 2,153,000.
So the
Plus
next
what we
page, what I
close
did is I put in all the projects that were approved right now. So if you look at this, the total new projects for next year are $2,004,000. It's actually $2,402,600. So
We don't
if,
even have enough for that.
no, so we would need about another $250,000, which some of those accounts, when they're closed out, might be able to offset
But we
this.
don't have a total number on those accounts, do we?
So
We were throwing a lot of numbers around a little while ago, but we don't have a total, I'm sorry,
No, no.
to the chair.
No, I don't have the total. I can go get it.
No, don't,
Okay.
I just don't understand how we're gonna get to where we need to get to without, the bond is off the table now, no HVAC for the library, the 615,000 could be out the window. We don't know how much we got in slush accounts that should have been turned back and weren't. And we're sitting here in what I view as a quagmire, because we don't have firm, solid numbers to go and do anything with. We don't have a certification of free cash yet. We have a supposition it's gonna be okay, that's fine. We just increased the budget for COA, but we get into this capital stuff now, and I can't support you don't wanna bond the money. I can't support cleaning out everything we've got and then going to town meeting and telling the people in town meeting that use the library, sorry, you have to sweat another year. And then it's not gonna get done either, because look at your capital plan for next year. Where's this additional funds gonna drop out of what heaven? I'm confused as to how we're gonna get there. It's 1.6 million now, we know it's not going down.
No.
It was $1 million speculatively, it was $1 million a couple of years ago, now it's 1.6. A couple of years from now, by the time we finally get rolled around to it again, and Dave's putting fans in all the windows, it'll be $2 million, and then it'll need a roof. So at what point do we say, wait a minute?
So we felt the same way as the committee, and we didn't want to keep pushing off the library. So as soon as all these numbers are finalized, again, the free cash, the revenue, everything's finalized, and we can look at it, we do want to come up with a plan for the library, whether it is making a capital stabilization fund just earmarked for the library to put into every year. But we do wanna make sure that the library gets done.
But that would mean it doesn't get done until we get the money in the account, which is kinda like the town hall siding that started off as a $20,000 or $40,000 kick into an account so we could paint town hall. And then suddenly somebody looked at the town hall and said, you can't paint the building now, cause the siding's falling off it, so now we have to side it. And now that turned into $800,000. Started out life at like 125 grand to paint the building. And I remember those conversations. And now we're close to $850,000, and that's assuming that there's no damage when they strip the material off the building to reside it, which we know is not gonna be the case.
Mr. Chairman, is there a plan to have on the warrant closing out a lot of these accounts that have money remaining in them?
Yes,
So that over the next few days, you're gonna be identifying those funds?
correct. I want to
Ask the
speak
selectmen to
with,
put those on the warrant, which would possibly give the extra money that's needed.
Exactly.
Make up for that at least from the sounds of
Yeah.
it, make up for that 600,000 at least.
I don't think there's that much in there, I don't think you got 600,000. I don't think you're gonna come up with that kind of number.
Who decides on the ARPA funds being distributed?
Selectmen,
And what are they generally for?
who the hell knows?
It could be justified for this, but
The trouble is, it empties it out, and they don't wanna do that yet, and then the school hasn't weighed in on this yet. But within this capital plan is 2 buses and so forth and so on, so the school's not doing without either. So, I think you're gonna have an uphill battle, it's just my personal opinion, but I think you're gonna have an uphill battle trying to present this budget. They're gonna wanna hang on to those ARPA funds, and as soon as the HVAC doesn't happen next door, it's gonna be an issue.
So I think I have some copies if anyone wants to see, but the town of Plymouth did put in their ARPA request, and they put in for HVAC units at 2 different fire stations.
That was only like 400,000.
Yeah, each one, and then they also put in for their townwide radio
They
system.
did a radio tower for $595 or something, like $495 or something like that.
got this right
That was approved for. So I'm not saying that if we couldn't get some funding, I think there's another $1 million that's supposed to be
$1,000,000.
coming from ARPA. Provided,
There's another $1,000,001, I believe, that we have coming from ARPA for the town of Carver.
But doesn't mean that it would get allotted. It'd
doesn't
be up
mean
to-
that we'll get it either. Because this is all pre-approval. ARPA money is, you put in a request and they tell you, as opposed to CARES Act where you gotta spend it and then pray to God you get
But-
reimbursed.
But Sue, didn't you say this 615 we've already received?
correct.
How did we get it?
We got it from the federal government through the state. It's not through the Plymouth County program. And
We didn't put in for it?
it was automatically just dispersed to the cities and towns.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. The $1,000,001, the next one, that's the one you have to submit the applications for. So
What-
the. Oh, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry to interrupt, but what is the plan for the roughly $2 million in free cash?
Part of it is paying for landfill monitoring and design, the North Carver Water District for their debt, putting money into stabilization, compensated absences, OPEB, and capital maintenance is, and then what they have here for capital.
So I guess what I'm asking is what's left, what's going to what? Do we have a plan for free cash at this point so that we know, is there any free cash left?
No, not after you go through this program. So I just took the last year's warrant articles, what was on there and what we could don't have to fund, like the executive consultant, what else, sped reserve.
Why are we
Why?
paying North Carver's bills this year when they had a surplus in their account?
They haven't come to see you yet?
They had a $500,000 surplus, they were even surprised they had this much money, why are we paying their bond this year?
Did
Why
they-
can't they pay their own?
That's the
bond?
budget that they presented to the two of us. To have us supplement them.
Were they not surprised when you told them they had $550,000?
Correct, they were
They had
surprised.
no idea they had that kind of money, and what was my question at that very meeting? Was, well, then you guys can pay your own bills this year.
To which they said,
They had no comment, they were still in la-la land that they had $500,000. Then
With
there
the-
was some comment about, well, we'd like to hang on to that as maybe, have it in a reserve, and my attitude was, tell you what, why don't you pay your own bills and we'll help you if you need it.
Did you say that we're gonna get rid of the sped reserve?
They have enough money
They
in
had
there
to-
right now,
They do?
from what Ron told me, that,
Okay.
you know, he said this is a good year not to, you know, see where we can go with it.
I really think we need to nail this budget down a little tighter than it is.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm hearing right now, is that we have an idea of where free cash is going, but here we are, laboring over capital numbers, and we don't know where $2 million worth of money is gonna be spent, like specifically, like, we should have been, theoretically, we're supposed to be having this conversation tomorrow night. It hasn't been certified, sure, it might be off by 50 grand, but how do we not know what's gonna happen to that $2 million?
We're not, this is,
And if I have no idea if North Carver Water District has $500,000 and doesn't need the 170 that we gave them last year. But if they don't, we should know that.
they don't only want the 170, they want the 170 plus their other 100 and,
They're actually only requesting 198, well, not only,
only
but,
198.
I know, but they don't have two numbers like they did last year. Last year it was 313,000 that they requested.
And this year they only want 198, when they're sitting on $500,000.
They asked for 313 last year?
Combined, there's two different articles.
Okay.
Yeah, they did.
Because free cash was 170.
So,
I'm looking at
just
the
so you know that, so the next sheet, the one we're looking at, that's all of the projects we have at total the 2,000,004 in case you wanted to broke it down for this year. I did try to put in just a little graph for everyone, in case you wanted to look at it, by department, what percentage, the capital was made up of. So you can, it's so hard to see, I'm sorry, this is black and white, I'll send everyone the other copy.
Oh, mine's good.
Yours is pretty, but ours is not, and I didn't have time to reprint it, sorry about that color. So then the next page is all the capital items that were on the big sheet that everybody has. This is this should match these sheets total, but this is the big 10-year rollout forecast if you want it. So as you know, on this sheet, if a number has a K or an M at the end, that means it has a different funding source. So here they are listed here, so it's just a little bit easier to see. So I'm sorry, I'm one slide ahead of you guys. The next one is the 293,000 of existing capital that rolls in yearly. So then the next page is the one where it has a different funding source. So this means it's either the North Carver Water District doing their own well and infrastructure, then we have the EMS replacement of the ambulance. We have 3 grants. One is for the district-wide student devices, replacement of a kitchen equipment, and a walking track at the school. So those are technically capital, but they're being funded from outside sources. So that's what we have tonight. I do feel like we weren't finished with this because we still need the final numbers for free cash.
I have to agree.
I wanted to table this for another week, but I know that everybody wanted to see it tonight, so we still presented it. We can come back again, or I can present myself.
I gotta tell you, Sue and I talked on the Sue and I talked on the phone today, and Beth and I talked on the phone a couple of times. And, I offered to let them both off the hook. I said, we're not meeting with the selectmen till the 15th. If it would be easier for you to take another week and get this stuff done, and I asked Beth, would that make it better and easier for you? Because she said, we can skip having the joint meeting tonight, and FinCom can meet and discuss the COA budget. And I said, well, we're already on the agenda, so why don't we get what we can get and see where we're at, but we can still have another meeting. And I gotta be honest with you, this is not ready for us to do anything with. I honestly believe that. Whether we try to meet, Thursday or Monday night would have to be downstairs because the school committee's up here, which I don't care. Hello?
Can I just point out one other thing? There's things that are in multiple places, which is confusing to me because when I'm asking somebody
I know.
about this, no one knows. But for instance, there's financial disclosure under the treasurer collector's line item for $15,000 and short-term debt for $50,000 under the debt. But under this short-term interest and disclosure on the grant, on the capital, there's 85,000. So it seems to me like it's in both places, but nobody can answer that.
Awesome. So
I
Mr.
just
Chairman?
feel like
yes, sir.
When does the warrant have to be published? What's the latest the warrant is?
The 12th, right?
30 days.
So the budget has to be posted, the 12th, I think, right?
The 12th of March?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's legally, the budget needs to be settled a month before town meeting.
Yes. Has to be posted.
Okay.
Have
Have we ever-
Today's the 7th?
Is that just the general fund budget?
I think it is.
So it's just the general fund budget with, which you guys have all pretty much come to a consensus on.
The
By-
capital then could
The
be
capital,
extended?
correct.
So that's all we have left now is we're dealing with capital, and if there's a change in bonding or not bonding, that all could come after the 12th.
Correct.
So as long as the general fund budget is done by the 12th, I think that's all that has to be done anyway. I think the rest of the articles and stuff like that can be added. I think the numbers have to be out by 30 days in advance.
Yeah, well, and we used to have an informal policy, we wanted the whole warrant out 30 days ahead of time for people to review.
In a
But
perfect
that's
world.
not law, that was just internal policy.
It's not happening this year anyway, so.
Beth,
Yeah.
what happened, last time you seemed to be more open to bonding elements of this, what transpired that changed that thinking?
I think the group felt that if we could do this without bonding, it would be better. And with the 615,000 that we were presented with that night, we thought we could potentially do this. I did bring, if you guys look at the packet, just in case we do go back to the bonding option. It looks like this. It's kind of a hard to read
Yeah.
sheet. But these are the 3 different bonding scenarios that we went over last week.
Yeah.
Just so you know, our group was more in favor with scenario C.
I
So,
would be too.
yes. So the first ones, the very first one is declining interest. So the first one was we pay more interest at the beginning of the loan, less at the end. But you can see all the way on the right side, we would be paying back 4.2 million. The next one is principal decline, I'm sorry, the first one straight line, let me just make sure. Yeah, I'm sorry, the first one is the declining, the second one is a straight line interest rate of 3.5%. With that one, we would be paying back 4.3, almost $4.4 million. The third one, those first 2 options are also 20 years. The first one's 20 and 10, depending on the project. So HVAC's 20 years, town hall's 20, and the radio system would be 10. The third scenario is 2.5% interest with 10 years for all 3 projects, and we would be paying back 3.6 million in total, and we would be done with this in 2036. The other thing to note is that in 2027, we will no longer be paying debt on the fire trucks. So that does fall off there. On the next page, it just has 3 little line items. This came from the bank.
The
Is that-
financial
yeah,
advisors, yes.
the financial advisors. So it just tells you what you would be paying back on A, B, or C.
And what's the balance in the capital and debt stabilization fund?
I'm sorry,
What's the balance of available funding in the capital and debt stabilization fund?
I think it's about 400,000.
So there's enough to pay this, is what I'm trying to, my point.
Paid the
I believe there'd be enough. I believe that this is, the capital and debt stabilization fund, is that not the money that goes out to pay the bonds?
correct.
Right, so would there be enough money in next year's capitalization fund to pay the new bonded amount if this was to come back into the picture?
for the first year.
Yeah, so the first year's were, it says it would be $443,276.
Then you still got fire engines falling off in a couple of years, so we'd have to maybe have a 1 or 2 year crunch. Is that what could possibly happen?
Yeah. Still,
And let's
soon.
not forget that we still have, solar money coming in, that we could, some of that goes to free cash. We still have the permit costs from North Carver, we have no idea how big a number that could end up being. But there's a caveat to the North Carver thing, if we don't.
That's a couple of years out.
Yeah, but there's gonna be, there's gonna be ongoing stuff, so we need to look at, if you're gonna look down the road at the debt, you gotta look down the road at the big picture.
So I do have, this hasn't been updated, I haven't received a new one in a long time, but I believe this was from early fall when I met with Rick. So it has the capital and debt stabilization balance is almost 435,000. Do we have a new one of these ones?
I can update it.
Okay, I think that would be helpful
Mm-hmm.
for us, just because I think this has since been updated and changed, and we just need a new one. Because otherwise, we don't know how much we're gonna have, like this year and then the future years over. Unless, is this new sheet gonna replace it?
It's, yes.
Okay,
So, can I ask
And-
this question? As it sits right now, Bob, are you saying that we are all set on the government side? You can go ahead and put the warrant out with the general government budget,
Yes.
and
So
we're
that-
okay with that?
Yeah, and that's gonna be 7 days before, 30 days before town meeting.
So that's gotta be by
7
the
days
12th.
before town meeting, the full warrant has to be posted.
Okay, so we could have a meeting next Monday night, again, and would anything that we're trying to get accomplished here tonight be ready?
I
For
would
us to
hope,
make firm decisions on? Would we
I would
have,
hope that we would get our free cash certified tomorrow or the next day.
so we have to be fine, so the 12th is a Saturday, right? So this all has
So
to
it
be,
defers.
no, this doesn't have to be done by the 12th. The
Okay.
general budget has to
But
be.
everything else
This
does.
can be after the fact.
Wouldn't it be better to build in a few extra days instead of making it next Monday, just to make sure that,
Tell me what you wanna do.
well, I'm just thinking Monday's sort of a crunch, if you go to next Thursday, or,
What do you do with the joint meeting with the select board?
I'm not sure what,
And we kick that
This
can
was
another
anyway.
week too, I don't really care, that's fine. Kick that, no, really, see, we can push the select board off for another week. This is much more important than, no disrespect, than keeping to the select board schedule if we don't have the right information to give them.
Is the select board meeting again before Monday?
The
They have a
meeting this
meeting on the
week,
10th. But that's a morning
on
meeting.
Thursday.
but
Just
at
to
this
go
point, if
over-
the budget's set,
So they have to vote on the budget, is why I'm asking the
yeah,
question.
they've gotta vote on the budget.
We don't, it's their
We just
budget.
need to see them for, I guess, to discuss capital outlay.
We can't, well, we're gonna have.
But, well, when the numbers, I'm just
Okay.
saying, I'd rather set the meeting after we know we've settled the capital outlay numbers than to set another meeting with them and then it turns out that
So-
we're not ready.
So,
I guess I'm confused. You're saying we should have the meeting with the select board on the 15th, which is still too late for them to set the general budget.
No, the general budget that's gonna be done before our meeting next week. The general budget's done on the 12th, has to go out the 12th, so,
yeah.
So that's gotta be done the 10th, is that what you're saying, Bob?
Yep,
and we are supposed to present the budget to the select board, so. I
We
mean,
had it
it's-
scheduled for tomorrow
we
night,
can-
the
like, we
chairman put it off.
we can tear up the whole process and, reinvent the wheel, and I don't wanna, throw a cog in the wheel of a process, but the process is supposed to be the finance committee presents the budget to the select board, and then the select board takes a vote to submit the budget to town
And the
meeting.
chairman of the select board put it off till the 15th. He's the one who canceled tomorrow night.
It's like, we can't get out of our own way. And this whole process, since it started 2 months ago, we can't get out of our own way.
my only point was, have the capital, get together to discuss capital outlay. When capital outlay feels, we've got all the answers we need, here's our recommendation based on the hard dollars that we know we have. Rather than pressing them to come up with something and maybe free cash is delayed another day or something.
Because originally we thought we'd have those numbers today, after our meeting with Sue last week. She was hoping to get it on Friday, but they didn't come through.
But I mean, even if they come in tomorrow, the next day, there's still, you know, you're rushing to try to plug everything in, figure out everything is. Not to mention maybe a little extra time to take a look at the funds that are available in outstanding accounts from the years old, that
Right.
maybe there's a way to put those in the warrant to free that money up.
Correct.
I think your meeting on the 10th is in the morning, right, 9:30, 10 o'clock?
Yeah.
Yes.
I can't make that meeting. I'm working. You got the time to do it, then you go meet with them, Adam, and present the budget. Anybody else that has the time that morning, Pat, you can maybe go, and Ron? I can't, that's absolute.
You can't meet with them on the 10th, but.
Sorry?
It's not on their agenda, is it?
They can revise. It's not on their agenda. They're planning, I don't know what Mark Townsend was thinking when he knows the 15th. I made a statement to him today that it's gonna be less than 30 days. He said, his quote was, "It is what it is." I don't know how that exactly works, but that's what I was told. The only other option I would see is to put town meeting off an extra 2 weeks. It's only the 13th, it's not like we can't push it off. What's one more week? What's etched in stone, is what I'm saying. There's nothing etched in stone, there's no law that says town meeting has to be. I don't believe it's in our bylaws, it has to be the second week of the month, is it, Ron? I think the elections
No,
are all
we've
that's
had
locked
them,
in.
we've had them in June before. So
Yeah,
we
the
did last
elections
year.
are all that's locked in, the town meeting's not locked in.
No, but I mean, at this point, I think there's general consensus in the budget, I don't think.
I agree with you, but Adam is correct. The FinCom is supposed to present the general budget. The general budget has to be in 30 days in advance. So now, those two things at this point in time can't happen. So now what?
Well, the budget that they're gonna see is the one we approve, so technically it's our budget.
Okay,
So if we technically cancel tomorrow night's meeting?
yes. It's already been posted on the website, canceled, and and the chairman said no.
And
And there is
I
no,
don't see
and
any
here's the
point-
thing, there is no select board meeting tomorrow night. None.
Thursday.
Thursday. They had made for a special meeting, it was gonna be next door, and then it got canceled, so there is no select board meeting tomorrow night.
And I'm not sure that
And
it
you
makes
can't have
sense.
one now anyhow, because you can't resurrect it.
And I'm not sure it makes sense to have one next Tuesday if the budget's already gonna have been presented.
And we don't have the
And
capital.
and we're not firm on capital yet. I mean, it sounds, we're hitting a glitch this year, but it, you know,
What do you think?
I've been in the band room, the night of town meeting, where fistfights almost broke out, fighting over capital disbursement, so we're ahead of the game.
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually we have a meeting every year before town meeting, but it's usually for minor stuff. I don't think it's ever been anything earth shattering in the half an hour before town meeting.
I just think if there's an opportunity to identify those accounts where the money can be moved out of and possibly made available for capital expenditures, and then capital finds out what free cash is, and then they can make a more, you know, without having to be rushed to try to, I mean, if the free cash gets certified tomorrow or Thursday, still, you guys have to meet and get together to have something to go present to us Monday or Tuesday, it just,
Well, the other problem is the $615,000 that you were hoping to have now appears to not be the case.
well, that's where maybe some of this money in some of those old accounts could be possibly,
So, do we know, because when we met on Thursday, we were under the impression that we could use the 615. Do we know what that's gonna be used for?
No, not right now. What
Okay.
the board talked about was maybe having set up an ad hoc committee to kind of look at requests that come in and decide what to weigh in on.
Who was the select board was gonna do this?
Yeah. Well, through me.
Pat?
Quick question about the balances in some of these accounts.
Are those funds gonna be readily available, or do they have to roll over until the following year's free cash?
As long as you vote them at your town meeting to be used for another purpose, then you don't have to wait. It's already been earmarked, so you can re-earmark it.
That's what we did last year for the Plymouth Street Water Project. We had to reallocate funds that were originally in other accounts to the water project.
Jim?
Because Ron, to go back to your question before, how this whole thing came up with the bonding was, we wanted to come up with a plan B in case bonding didn't get approved, so we wouldn't get, struck and then have to go back to the drawing board again. So when we started to talk about some of the funds, Sue had said she found some of these other expenses that were there, and then we found out that, the delta was a little bit higher than we thought as well. Taking off the, $175,000 for the brush breaker. So I think in the back of our minds too, the 615, even if it didn't get approved, we thought we had a game plan for that. But of course, we thought the free cash was gonna be certified by now, it didn't. So like you said, it's kind of thrown us back a little bit, but, that was our thought with that. And I was the one that brought up, I was really more concerned that the bonding wouldn't pass at town hall, and then when we do. Part of the other deal, like Sue had mentioned earlier, was start earmarking some money for the library project. Last year when the bonding wasn't done, it was just like, okay, we'll bond it next year. Well, hindsight, 2020, maybe we should have tried to earmark some for this year. So we just wanted to try to do that, maybe earmark some for next year and a couple of years down the road. Because again, bonding, the way the economy is and everything else, we don't know if we don't want to bond this year, maybe we don't want to bond next year again, and the project has to get done, we all agree on that. But we really have to come up with a game plan for that, so that was kind of our,
Yeah,
thinking
and
behind
I
it.
understand, it's just that with the capital stabilization plan, the theory of the way it works is that you have cash that you're using, you're bonding some items, some come off, some come on, you
Right.
sort of keep it level for short-term and long-term debt. So that, I trust you folks to look at it and make the appropriate recommendations, but again, I think that sheet, Beth, needs to be updated,
It does,
so,
yes.
we know what we're working with. And if, the warrant doesn't have to be out till legally 7 days ahead of town meeting?
The
which is
full warrant?
The full
Yeah,
warrant.
seven days.
So that's like April 5th. So my point is that you got time to let capital outlay know that they've got a solid presentation to give to us. I'm just arguing against rushing in next Monday when some of these questions still may not be answered.
I'm fine with that. My problem, my only concern is, kicking the can on the bond is that I understand where you're coming from and I fully agree, there's gotta be a plan B, but what if there's no such thing as 2.5% money next year? What if a good deal next year is, God forbid, 4% money? And then we find that we don't have a choice. So there's, like I said, we have to, you're looking at what we can save in spending going forward. We need to look at what the revenue could be going forward, but we also need to look at the ramifications of not doing it and what the cost of actually kicking that down the road is, because we have a 10-year capital plan here, and you can see that every year there's the new wish list, and it just concerns me that I think that people are under the impression that they've waited long enough. We've been listening to the library. What saved us last year was the fact that it was closed, for the most part with COVID. I think there would have been far more problems than we had. This year, the library is a huge budget. And I think people are gonna start looking at it and saying, well, wait a minute, if the library is this much money, then we can't even use it in the summertime, because you can't breathe in that place. So I think, and now we have heating systems that are starting to go bad and stuff like that. So it's not just the air conditioning on the second floor. There's more to the story. And I'm not advocating that we have to come out and bond. I'm saying that we gotta look at all of it, and I do leave that up to you guys for the best decision to be made, and I know you'll do that. If you think we're fine, Bob, with just letting the selectmen do the general budget as it's already been approved and passed, and you and Sue have the right numbers and you can present that to them, and you know, we don't present it this year, that's fine. And then we can work on the capital side of things when you're comfortable and your committee is comfortable and you've got a final solution, then we'll get back together again as a group and hash it out and go from there. I don't see any other way to do it, because this is not ready to do anything with tonight. And the meeting tomorrow night is canceled, and we can't put it off past the 12th for the general budget to present to the select board, because it's gotta be published. It's gotta be published, is that the bottom line? It has to be
Yeah,
published by the 12th, 30 days.
So what you could do is vote the budget tonight with the authorization for me to present it to the Board of Selectmen on Thursday.
Do we even have an updated budget? I feel like I've been using the same, I honestly been using the same sheet for a few weeks now, and I think we've changed things.
I've
We made changes
updated-
tonight. So,
Yeah, so like my bottom line's not gonna foot.
Nope.
I have updated it as we've been going along.
Okay,
So I
Okay,
can send
so-
you this
So-
copy.
okay, so I
So
think we need a copy.
we could do a motion that Bob present the updated budget. Sue, can you get the updated complete budget in our email tomorrow?
I'll send it to you, I don't have everybody's email.
Okay, send it to me, I'll send it to everybody. And then, a motion tonight will be that pending receiving that from Sue, and I'll distribute a copy of it to everybody else, we can let Bob present it. If anybody has a problem with the budget that I send out tomorrow when she sends it to me, all you need to do is email me individually. Do not get into a conversation. Just send me a separate email, and then we'll address whatever the question might be. I don't see how else we can do this, unless you wanna meet again on Thursday night. But they're meeting Thursday morning, but it's not on their agenda for
No,
Thursday.
it's not. I was just gonna say, Bob, they've gotta revise the
Yeah, I
agenda.
know it, yeah, I just
We'll look
realized
under
that.
town administrator updates.
Well, no, you can have it down.
But Sue, you're telling us that what you would represent is everything that we voted
Correct.
at our meetings.
So if you're okay with that, I'm fine with that, just send us a copy. And we'll make a motion to let Bob present that budget, which will include tonight's changes also.
Right, I'll make that motion.
We've got a couple things to vote on tonight too, that we haven't technically voted on.
Such as?
The FinCom salaries and,
Sure we do.
no, I don't think we do. I don't have it in my notes, so
I
if we
don't
did,
either.
if somebody else has it in their notes, great, but I don't have it. We didn't vote on inspectional services either.
I don't think we
Commission.
ever do vote on inspection and
It's
services.
got a budget.
We didn't vote on capital outlay either.
What's that?
Capital outlay too, I don't think was voted on.
So there's things in here we haven't voted on. We can get back to that, but,
Well, we gotta get back to it right now, because we gotta get this straightened out.
Well, we have a motion.
yeah, I just wanted to finish
Well,
the
we're gonna-
budget. I
can you
wanted to finish
withdraw
the
that
capital
motion,
discussion,
please?
but.
I'll withdraw it.
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry, Ron, I didn't mean to interrupt. Do we wanna revisit the capital discussion afterwards then?
I don't understand your question.
If I have questions about the capital budget and the things we've discussed tonight, are we gonna revisit it after the fact?
Yes, we're gonna have another meeting.
Well, yeah, okay.
Do you have questions now? We can
Yeah,
keep going on
so
capital
essentially,
before-
what is the, as currently constituted, you're short what, $615,000?
The ARPA money.
The ARPA money.
Just the ARPA money.
Yep,
So,
but I'm not very comfortable with what we actually have for the funds because I wait for free cash to be
well, so free cash,
finalized.
when free cash gets certified, there'll be a certain amount, $2 million, right? What in this budget was gonna be taken out of free cash? What in this plan was gonna be taken out of free cash for capital?
Well, I don't think we ever decided that because
Nothing yet, right?
No,
Nothing.
we were hoping the 615 would probably offset the townwide radios. Is what we thought was gonna be happening
So-
on Thursday
So
when we met.
here's what I'm saying, if there's $2 million in free cash and you have not asked for any of it yet, is capital outlay.
We've not asked for it.
935 is part of that $2.1 million.
How much was it?
So 935,000 was part of the $2 million that we gave you. So you actually had over 3, but a portion of that is to pay for the debt.
Yep,
So rather than have you guys even, worry about it, it's part of the top line
okay.
of the budget.
Okay, so we haven't seen it, so that's the other thing, I think we need to see that spreadsheet breakdown.
Of free cash?
of everything she's talked about. So
Okay.
we're still waiting on the budget spreadsheet with the revenue and the breakdown, which portions go into
I guess,
capital.
here's why I'm asking the question. I would like to see a list of what the $2 million for free cash is going to be spent on. Because that's $2 million. It, I mean, we only had 1.5 last year. We satisfied all our free cash needs last year with 1.5 million. If we've got 2 million this year, there's an extra $500,000 right there for capital.
Well, as I said before, there's other things that you guys pay for out of a free cash line item. There's two different things in the warrant that you guys pay for, free cash and capital. So some of that free cash is being used to pay for those other expenses that are in Article 3, I believe.
Totally. It's like the Special Ed Reserve Fund, the North Carver Water District, that stuff that is the Plymouth County Retirement, amortization, like different things, North Carver Water Landfill. Like there's different things that every year sort of come out of that account as a matter of like process, right?
Mm-hmm.
It still was only 1.5 million last year. Now it's 2 million this year. So I'd like to understand where that $2 million is going to be spent before we sort of, freak
Well,
out that we don't have the money
We
for
haven't
capital
seen
outlay.
it.
So let.
How do we not know that right now? How do we not know? We know this plan in early February every year. Free cash is certified every year in October. By February, we have a pretty concrete idea as to where the free cash money is going to be spent. How is it on March 7th that we don't know where $2 million is going to be spent, and we have a town meeting in 40 days?
So didn't you give an indication as to where you thought the 2 million was gonna go?
I just did.
But we're sitting here right now and we do not have it in front of us. And capital outlay is looking for $500,000, $600,000, and they don't have it in front of them.
I'm sorry, it was distributed to a few people. There's several different tabs that's on that worksheet that I sent out. So,
The one
and
you sent
this,
out tonight?
this
that one?
is on there, well, you just got it tonight.
Okay. Sorry, I
But
didn't have
it's
time
on
to
there,
look
and
at
then
it
it
before I
also
left.
shows your capital, and it also shows you're paying for your debt.
I'm sorry if I sound angry. It's crazy to me that we are having a discussion on March 7th about all this money, and we don't know how $2 million is going to be spent in 40 days.
Okay, well, it's crazy to me that you have 2 new people and a new person at the school who's had to decipher what is in these line items because it was piled in, like I just told you. That disclosure for 85,000 that's under capital, it's also in the budget, in 2 different spots. So
When are we going to figure that out? On April 11th?
when you can get somebody to tell me how it works. Is that money in the budget set aside differently than the money that's in the capital? I don't know that, I haven't been here. Bob hasn't been here. Ron hasn't been here, since February, he's made his year, February, the end of February. So you're talking to people who have to figure out what prior town administrators and prior finance directors and prior school business managers have done with this budget, and nobody can tell us what's going on. We have to figure it out for myself. Matter of fact, that $144,000 Plymouth County pension amortization, we had a negative balance in the paying for Plymouth County of that exact dollar amount, and I didn't realize it until we put this worksheet together. I'm like, oh my God, I thought we were in the negative for 144. But I guess when the bill came in, or the budget had already been done, so they added it to reduce free cash. Now I know what that 144 was for. I was gonna come to Finance Committee and say, we're in the deficit. Guess what? I found out that we're not. And that's what it is, like Plymouth County pension amortization. It should just say Plymouth County pension shortfall. Amortization it's just the shortfall from last year's budget.
Who prepared the warrant? The draft warrant that we have right now, who prepared that draft warrant?
The one that's going out today,
Correct.
that's Elaine, basically.
With the former interim town administrator, right?
Yep.
So these discussions about all of this stuff is a conversation that should have happened before the former interim town administrator walked out the door. And it didn't happen.
You didn't give him time to talk about it.
So it didn't happen. He knew his contract was up on 12/31, and these conversations did not happen. And that's why you have a chair of the select board that literally doesn't know who authored articles on the warrant. Because these conversations never happened. That's why we're in the situation we're in.
Some of the articles that are on the warrant are placeholders for every year, and you put them on there, like unpaid bills. We don't have any unpaid bills, but you want it on there just to make sure that you don't miss it, because once the warrant's closed, you can't reopen it.
Yeah, that's not what we're talking about. That's not what I'm talking about. So
You're not being fair, Adam. Calm down, I'm telling you right now. Enough. You're not being fair.
To who?
You're throwing the wrong people under the bus.
I'm not throwing anyone under a bus.
You absolutely are. You're
I-
accusing the former town administrator of not doing his job. The fact of the matter is, the guy knew that he was vying for his life for 3 months. What the hell did you want him to do? Devote himself to this? I'm shocked that he lasted to the end of the year.
I wanted the individuals responsible for
Well,
the
then we should
warrant,
bring him back in here and hang him.
for the warrant to understand that they need to notify, the people that are responsible for this warrant should be aware of what's in this warrant.
Right.
And what I'm being told is, we had to figure it out.
We
Why
had
did
an absolute disaster in the finance department because everything got screwed up before she got here.
So she left in June.
And
alright?
we had an interim guy in the middle.
And now it's,
And then we
March.
lost the assessor.
I know what we lost, I'm
Okay.
well aware of it, and I know
So,
why we lost it.
Let's not, no, you don't know why we lost it.
I
That's
do.
the problem.
I do, I know exactly why.
No, you don't. You just
so-
think you do.
All right.
No, I've had enough of this tonight. We're done.
We're done with what? You're gonna tell me,
Stop.
you're
I'm
gonna
gonna tell you to stop.
tell me to stop saying what? That I'm
I'm gonna tell you to
concerned,
stop.
that I'm concerned about the financial well-being of this town, because
I'm
we
gonna
do
ask
not.
you to stop.
Stop what? You don't want me to share with
Yes,
the
I
general
want you to be
public?
quiet now.
You don't want me to share
Alan.
with the
Yes.
general public my
May I
concerns?
please?
Please.
So,
Sue?
when your prior town administrator came in, the budget for last year was already in place by Mr. Milanowski. So when I'm asking questions, he's got some of the same questions to ask. And who would he go to? Who's Bob gonna go to? We're gonna try to figure it out. But when I asked certain questions, until I got that worksheet that you said you want updated with the
Yep.
blue lines in it, I couldn't find it. I had no idea where it was. It wasn't on the hard drive. One day we have a meeting with Scott and Ron, and a piece of paper comes out that I've never seen before, and I'm like, oh, that's where it is. That's what that number consists of. If you look at the warrant for last year, the town meeting budget warrant, $6.9 million for Voc Tech debt, transfers, etc. $6.9 million. I have to try to figure out what that number was. The budget was already done when Rick got in. So you can't blame Rick for not knowing where those numbers
No,
came
but
from.
listen, he didn't leave the day after town meeting. And if he didn't know what was in the warrant last year, he should have raised that as a concern. I have no idea what this number is. It's $6.9 million. I have no idea what it is. Like Bob's saying tonight, Bob's been very transparent. I've watched every select board meeting. I didn't do this. I don't know. We gotta figure it out. I understand there's stuff that's lost in translation. The reality is not everybody in town who's responsible for these things has moved on. They haven't. And there should be plenty of time after town meeting in April to wrap your brain around what was in the or last year's annual town meeting warrant to understand how this stuff needs to
The
be
bottom
shuffled
line
around.
is though, right now, going back and trying to find someone to hang doesn't solve the
I'm not
problem we have
suggesting,
today.
I'm not
But you are.
suggesting Alan,
But you
We're
absolutely
focused
are.
on how we got here.
You have a
At this
different
point,
agenda.
it's not, doesn't matter how we got here, we have to figure out how we get out of here at this point.
I think it is important to point out to the general public in this town that this is a mess because we don't know where we're at. And I think it's inexcusable that we don't have an idea as to what's in our annual town meeting warrant a month before town meeting. It's inexcusable.
I don't disagree, but. we've
It's
been
not about
talking
hanging
the
people,
circumstances.
it's not about hanging
By that
people.
very statement, it is. By
Did
that
you-
very
you said-
statement,
No,
it's
I'm not-
inexcusable.
I'm not looking
So
at-
therefore, who does the warrant, so who should not be excused?
I'm not-
Do you think that's fair to say?
I don't even know what you're saying, so I
Of course
can't.
you don't.
The fact of the matter is we are in this situation and nobody knows what's going on. That is a problem.
No,
I'm not-
I think
I think
Bob
I know
and
what's
Sue
going on, so
are
does
getting a
Bob.
grip on
We
it.
have a pretty good
We don't
idea
have a
what's
grip
going
on it
on.
by town meeting.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, I'll show up the night before and get a. I mean, we're the finance.
What's
committee.
your alternative? Where we're at now, it doesn't matter how we got here.
Yeah, I know.
We have
That's
to solve the problem.
super convenient to have that attitude. I get it. Let's not hold anybody accountable for anything. I
So
get
what
it.
is it, who do you want to hold accountable, Adam?
You don't wanna hold Meg accountable. She
No,
was
of course
perfect.
not.
So you don't wanna hold her accountable, so it's basically bring back Rick LaFond and it's all his fault. That's basically what you're trying to say.
Well, it
Correct.
certainly isn't Meg's.
Well, you said Meg left in June. Well, she stopped doing things in April.
That might be the case.
What, she
Well,
didn't,
excuse me.
she didn't book
Why-
the, wait,
that-
let me,
that-
How dare you?
She
That
didn't-
might be the case, might?
She
You're
didn't-
telling her she's a liar now.
No, but that was 8 months ago, Alan. 8 months.
And then we had an interim guy. And then she was a brand new person who
So-
couldn't find How much of the documents could you not find for how long?
All right,
Exactly.
you're perfectly comfortable with the situation we're in, that's fine.
I'm not.
You've gone on the record, it's fine.
I'm not comfortable with it, but I'm not gonna hang anybody out to dry that's in this room.
All right, Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question? Sue, am I wrong, or did you earlier allude to, you had an idea how the 2 million was gonna be spent in free cash?
Correct.
Could you just run through that very quickly, I know it's a rough estimate at this point, but I know you mentioned earlier that if it's 2 million, you knew how it was gonna be spent.
Correct.
Because it's been suggested we didn't know what we were gonna do with it.
Well,
Right, so-
what I said is that we are the finance committee and we do not have it in front of us. That's what I said.
And I think we've discussed the fact that because of a series of issues, it's late this year.
And we don't have it
And-
in front of us.
To
Yep.
speak for myself and for Ron, who did not understand or could not find Meg's worksheets, we recreated it. So it's simple for us, not a bunch of $6.9 million on one line item. Or, you know, again, all these things that are in the budget, I have to figure it out. Ron didn't have access to creating account numbers on the school side. None of my staff knew how to do that. So I'm like tiptoeing through, oh, you need a new account number and nobody in my office knows how to create that? So in the middle of getting all this together for you, I'm also trying to get the DOR to certify free cash. I'm getting account numbers made for people. I asked for somebody to make a journal entry and it's like, psh, I don't know how, I was never taught. I don't have access to that. School department now has access to make their own journal entries. They come to me and I approve them. There's a lot of things that Meg held close to her and did all
She
by
didn't share with
herself
anybody.
and shared no information. To get somebody.
Anyway, would you mind just running through how the free cash is gonna be, you're anticipating the expenditure of the $2 million?
So $935,000 was part of this capital line item.
So of the 2 million that we have, or 2.1, almost half of that is roughly from free cash.
It probably is, I think it's in the, we haven't seen it broken down like that, but it would be in that total available
Right.
funds, yeah.
Did I give one? Yeah, you guys have it in front of you. You don't have this sheet, but that sheet right there shows your capital at $3.1 million. 1.5 of it is going to, the debt. Then what's left over on that sheet, plus $935,000, is going towards the capital. So if you were to actually add up those two line items and the money from free cash, you're getting exactly what the 3 point whatever million, I don't have it and you don't have it because I passed them all out. So everything is right there. The 1.2, the 1.5, and the 935,754 equals the 3.6 of that worksheet that Meg had that would have gone to capital.
Okay.
Ron and I pulled out the debt and gave you just the money to spend on capital and pay the debt separately. It's still coming out of that, technically, that $3.6 million, but it's easier to see that that part is debt, and I'm sorry it's not written next to that.
So this might have to be slightly adjusted depending on when free cash is certified, if the number is above or below
Correct.
what this is.
Correct. And on this other worksheet where Adam had it up for Plymouth County pension amortization, that was taken out. The executive consultant was taken out. So you have OPEB, stabilization, North Carver Water District, landfill monitoring, and capital maintenance, and compensated absences. And a lot of that is even higher than it was the prior year. So if free cash doesn't come in where we want, there's a decision to be made by the financial staff as to how much money we're putting in there and presenting it to you as this is what free cash is now, and we might need to reduce some of those reserves that we want to put into stabilization or compensated absences. Like last year, OPEB was $50,000. Ron and I have earmarked $225,000. Do we want to bring it back down to 50 at some point? Well, we're waiting to see what the free cash number is.
Thank you.
I think the Old Colony number's high too this year. It's not 1.3. It's not 1.1 either. I think that
But if we need it.
you guys need to work out your
We,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
This,
And they really can't finish until they've got
That's right.
a certified free
Exactly.
cash.
that's right, and we can sit here and argue about whose fault it is and what should have been done prior to, and shoulda, woulda, coulda to death. It doesn't change the fact that this is exactly where we are. So regardless of how we got here, doesn't matter. We're here. So now we need to make the best of it and make it work. It isn't the first time we've been caught. This is just a bad time to get caught. And everybody can come up with a gazillion reasons why we're caught, and none of them make any better sense than any other reason. So we can throw stones and beat people up with baseball bats and hold people to account and praise the ones that are no longer here. God forbid they should have left, and it doesn't matter, because we're here.
One more comment?
Yes, ma'am.
Ron and I have worked really hard on this.
There's no doubt.
That's all I have to say.
And I know for a fact that there were people in your office that when you got here could not do any of the work that we thought they were doing because it was kept so close to the vest. Now I know why another individual was always exhausted, because
Well, anyway, let's.
it was all being done. So this is why we're here, and it is what it is. So you want to present the general budget, I'll take a motion from the committee. If the committee does not want the town administrator to do that, so be it. It's
Yeah,
up to all of you.
Again, so what you're gonna email to us will represent all the updates based on the votes that we've made, including tonight's.
Correct.
So I'll make my motion then that, subject to receipt and satisfaction with the budget received tomorrow, that we authorize Mr. Fennessy to present the budget as approved by the Finance Committee at the Select Board's next meeting.
Second.
Well, there would be further discussion now, because you had an issue with a couple of other line items you said we didn't vote on. Is that right, Ed?
We need to withdraw again.
Maybe not.
Yeah, you're right. We didn't vote on the Finance Committee, the Capital Outlay Committee.
The FinCom and Capital Commission, is that what you're saying?
And legal?
The 29,225? Is that the number?
31025. The total FinCom. It's on the top of the next page.
Yes, I see it. I don't think we usually voted on that. Can't vote on our own grant program. That's something that was given to us by town meeting, so that doesn't require a vote of any kind, because it shouldn't even, it doesn't require a vote.
We voted on it every year, because every year I raise the question, why are we not recusing ourselves from voting on our own salaries? So if we don't wanna vote on it this year, that's fine, we
Yeah, I
voted
don't
on it
wanna
every
vote
year,
on it this
then that's fine. We still need to vote on inspectional services.
That's fine. The FinCom, I don't think we need to vote on. The 1,800 is given to us as a stipend by town meeting. The 25,000 grant program is given to us by town meeting. The $1,150 as well as the $1,000 other professional services, here we go again. And I want that item removed. I want that more defined. And 1,500 seminar and training, office supplies, which we don't use, and which actually is the nameplates come out of office supplies, because I don't ever turn a slip in for paper or ink. Dues and members, and the grant program. So we pay for Ashley out of some of this money, and that's what it's there for. And I don't feel comfortable voting on our own budget, and 25,000 of that's voted by town meeting. So, now, next.
There's a capital outlay budget as well this year. On the next page, $750.
$750?
Really?
It's up to you if you want to vote on it.
Make a motion to approve the capital outlay budget of $750.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the capital outlay budget, $750. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Should I abstain? I don't know.
For appearance purposes.
I'll
Yes, you-
abstain.
You should. $701. Inspectional services, the $138,000? Is that correct?
136,829.
That's what I'm looking at. Oh, that's up because of the new department head. That's up because of the new building inspector. Am I correct?
That's where we went from part-time to full-time?
Yeah.
Well, it's, instead of a part-time inspector, now it's a full-time commissioner,
Right.
which was required by
Give it in.
law.
There's
It's all
somebody
pretty
in place
straightforward.
now?
I'll take a motion.
There's somebody in place now for that position?
Yeah, we have a new guy. Paul Boucher is the full-time, permanent building commissioner.
I'll make a motion to recommend the total inspectional service budget for FY '23 for $136,829.
Second?
Motion made and seconded to recommend the budget for the inspectional services of $136,829. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Did we skip legal? Do we need to do that one for
We don't
100,000?
usually do legal because that's a selectmen's thing and they're the ones that set it. So we don't nail down to every line item on that budget just because what are we gonna say? No to legal? And then,
We voted on it on 2/7.
they're gonna put it
We
back
did?
anyhow.
Okay, my bad.
Also, inspectional services, just so that everybody's aware, I believe we took in $1 million in permit fees last January, February. I mean, it's not like that department doesn't generate a ton of money, because they do, so. All right, now, Mr. Clark, we can take your motion for the third time if you'd like.
Well, it's still out there, that was done during discussion.
And I second it.
Motion.
Can I say something?
Yes, sir.
About this, so my concern is that the select board, no offense, is canceling their commitment to us. And like Adam said, there's a process. So we're skirting this by allowing not us to present it, and I understand why.
Well, they were
Is there-
concerned that Mark Townsend was more worried that we may not be ready.
Okay,
That was his biggest concern. He thought that we would not be ready for tomorrow night, and actually it turns out now we wouldn't be. So tomorrow night, we'd only go and we'd talk about the general budget. So, I think there was just, I said this back in, and I know exactly where Adam's coming from, because I said this back in November, and I said this to you today. In previous years, we've been discussing the budget beginning in November. And we worked into December, we took it easy through the holidays, and then by the middle of January, we were done. So we're way behind the curve this year, but that's just because of, everything that happened. So faults don't have any place because it's not gonna do any good. So, any other discussion? It's a motion on the table to allow the town administrator to present the government side of the budget that's been approved by the Finance Committee to the Select Board. Is there any further discussion on that motion? And I would take a roll call vote for that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Tony?
Tony McCray says that.
Ron Clark says aye.
Walter Cole, aye.
Bill Gallo, aye.
Adam Holmes says aye.
Ellen Jermaine, aye.
Elizabeth Salgar, aye.
Pat Maher, aye.
And Jim, you'll
Unanimous?
be able to encapsulate the entire discussion
Right.
at the select board meeting when you have it.
Word for word. Okay.
I'll leave it for you to think, Tim.
Well, actually, I'm glad that you're here tonight so that you can try to give some some insight as to where we're at and why we're here. And, you know, Bob will help also with that. I thought that we would have been ready for tomorrow. I didn't realize that tonight was gonna, I didn't know anything about the 6:15 not being available. That really throws a wrench into things. And then for another day, I'm not happy with the select board having control over that kind of money without having some FinCom input anyhow. But that's,
So, Mr. Chairman, is there a need for us to meet with them next Tuesday? Based on the fact?
not unless the capital budget's ready, and even if it's ready, I don't see that there's a need to meet, unless we're gonna start going over anything else, but I don't believe there is.
We,
Go
so,
ahead.
we can vote on our articles on our own time for the warrant. There's none that we have to sit in front of them to vote on. Since we're not presenting the budget, there's really no need, other than there is a placeholder on the warrant for the FinCom bylaw.
And that has never been discussed.
It's never been discussed, we've tried for years, and the expectation, I assume, is to have a joint discussion about that bylaw like we've been trying to do for 2 years.
Actually, that there was some modification made to that bylaw. Selectman Belvin sent me a copy, and the only changes that I saw made to it, who was on that committee? The only changes that were made to it is that you must be a resident, and they took the Council on Aging off. That's it? So, whose idea was that you must be a resident? Because you have to be a registered voter in the town, so I'm confused as to why it would make the statement you have to be a resident. Of course you have to be a resident,
Yeah, Bob.
of course. So, just wanted that out there for the public. So in other words, the bylaw hasn't changed at all, except they've added a foolish line and removed what should have come off that a long, long, long time ago. In fact, they did not correct what was passed by town meeting in 2015, and that's the statement that says, "The Finance Committee shall serve without pay." We all get a stipend. We've been getting a stipend since the Governance Committee brought it forward in 2015.
What was the COA exception? What change was that with the COA?
They removed the COA. It said it applied to the FinCom and COA. Don't ask me why.
Oh, in terms of not being able to be on any other.
Some silliness with that, so.
So
COA
the
got.
the gist of it is to attempt to clarify the existing bylaw, which has always been interpreted. I mean, since, you know, I've been involved, it's always been the understanding that if you're on the FinCom, you can't be anywhere else.
Okay, great. Except
Well,
Pat
no.
Maha sits on the RDA, Pat Maha sits on the Cable Advisory Committee. You
Alan,
sit on the
Alan,
Cable
I'm-
Advisory
Alan, I'm-
Committee,
I'm
please. You
Alan.
can't pick and choose.
Alan, I'm just trying to state
I
that
know.
the current bylaw has always been interpreted that you're restricted to just being on the Finance Committee.
Right.
The intent of the new bylaw is to even bring greater clarification, because I think we had to get some sort of an attorney's ruling that if you're on a board or committee, you're an officer of the town, and the intent
That was a
is to try to
convenient
just
interpretation.
make it black and white, that if you're on the FinCom, you can't be on any other committee.
But we didn't do that.
But
That
isn't that what it says now?
No,
That is not what it says now. It is just as ambiguous as it always
it's the
was.
same verbiage as it relates to that.
Nothing's changed,
They have-
except
then what's
Bob
the
added you
purpose
gotta
of
be a
the-
resident.
The only difference is we got clarification from town council on what that current language actually means, but that clarification is not in the bylaw. So in my opinion, 5, 10 years from now, somebody else might interpret that differently. And I made this point last year, and when we had the joint meeting on, I think it was March 23rd in the the high school auditorium, that the language isn't clear. You need, a forensic detective to tell you what the intent of the bylaw is and what it means, because
Because if
it's,
we did the bylaw, why not simply say, if you sit on the Finance Committee, you cannot sit on any other board or committee?
that was proposed by the select board, and it never made it to the warrant in that form.
Right. Cause
And-
the argument
And then have
was,
and then have the debate, is that right or wrong?
Correct.
Right.
I mean, I've never really understood the restriction. I assume it's to avoid conflicts of interest, but.
but
I mean,
where?
when we bump into it, like, I don't vote on the Council on Aging budget because I sit in the FCOA.
She doesn't vote on the fire
I
department
mean,
budget.
we've always just recused ourselves if there's a conflict.
That's right.
And it's not even our budget, right? Which begs the question, why is FinCom restricted, but other boards and committees aren't?
Right.
And then the clarification from town council says that if it's a board or committee that's established by state statute, then you cannot serve on that board or committee. But if it's something that isn't, i.e. the recreation committee is not formed by state statute, so you can serve on the rec committee, but you can't serve on the zoning board of appeals.
But the rec committee has a budget bigger than the zoning board of appeals.
Correct.
I just don't, I mean, I knew that they were redoing the article, I just figured they'd make it black and white.
And this is why I think a discussion is warranted.
The argument that I had,
Has the board, has the select board already voted that to appear
No.
on the warrant?
no, they have not.
Because they're waiting to have our joint meeting.
Right. The argument that I had, and obviously, this whole thing came up because I sit on the finance committee. This was a personal hit job. So, and everybody knows that. There's no secrets to be told there. Everybody knows that. It was put out there at a selectmen's meeting. So, that being said, my argument was, in a town where the finance committee has the power to overrule the select board, I understand that.
That's right.
I would get that. This finance committee is nothing more than an advisory committee. We will advise, what do we do tonight? We recommend this budget to the select board. The select board can take that budget, throw it in the trash. We don't like what they told us, we're doing this instead. And there's nothing we can do about it, except stand up at town meeting and say, your finance committee thinks this is ridiculous.
Well, maybe there's a value in meeting with them next week to have the discussion then, but if that's the verbiage for the bylaw, then I don't see that.
They didn't change anything, and they didn't remove what needs to be removed that should have been removed 4 years ago, which is the pay. Still says in the bylaw, in the book, that the finance committee shall serve without pay. And I had to go dig, because Elaine was not gonna give anybody a check 2 years ago. I had to go find the governance committee minutes and prove to her that it was passed, and that they just never updated the bylaws.
The bylaw exists and it's not enforced. It's only enforced when it's convenient to enforce it.
Right.
Which is why you should just simply have the debate, yes or no. If you're sitting the FinCom, you can or cannot serve on any other committee, and just on its merits. You don't need to nuance.
Well, you can
the
easily,
article.
define what the interpretation of an officer of the town is. Personally, I always thought, and this is how I ended up on conservation, I was on FinCom first, and then I was put on Conservation Commission, and it was Jim Nowen who said, I don't know if you can be on the Finance Committee and something else. And I said, I'll find out, and I was sent down to, at that time, Lynn Doyle, who opened the book and says, oh yeah, it says right here that you can't be an officer of the town. Well, you're not an officer. She says, so yeah, you can serve. You have no financial interest. And that, she says, I don't see any problem with that. I came back up
Steps in
and,
and says, that is
That's right.
meets the definition.
then council comes in and says, well, we are officers. Well, that means we had a lot of officers in
Well,
the town.
again, not to get into all that, I just don't understand if the intent was to, why not just make it black and white? I don't know why you keep the same wording.
And we took the wording for the capital outlay out. Remember how the wording used to say the capital outlay may not be in any of the
Right.
other board, committee, or commission? That got removed last year by a vote of town meeting.
Because we redefined the capital outlay.
Because we redefined the capital outlay committee, so that line no longer exists.
And when we originally started this discussion, you were also serving on zoning board. And
Yes,
then that
I was.
went
But
away.
that's almost a separate discussion of whether you can serve on more than, X amount of committees. I mean, they've got, that's been a separate bylaw discussion. I don't know if it's actually making its way this way, but I
I
know
don't think it's.
the select board has taken
Well,
that
they
up.
did it last year with, you can't be on more than one permitting board now,
That's right.
which there was fallout from that, and it wasn't for the intended victim. There was fallout to somebody else.
I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, that you check with the select board and ask them if they'd be interested in having us come in to discuss that particular article, but there's probably, unless a miracle occurs, we won't be doing capital at the same time.
Yeah, the danger we run is if we don't insist on a meeting with the select board, they can vote to put that on the warrant without our input.
And then we have to file, we'd have to do an amendment.
I already
to
took a
town
night
meeting.
off, so taking the last 2 Tuesdays off.
They
Don't put
can
it
and
in.
almost, they can vote to put it on the warrant without our
Yeah,
input.
they can.
Oh, yeah, they can do anything. But I know that the more reasoned select board members would love to have our input before casting a vote. No, I mean, again,
I'm fine with that. If you guys wanna meet next Tuesday, we'll
I think you
meet.
need to check and make sure that they want us, and if they do, then I'd be willing to come in
Oh.
for the discussion.
I'll call Mark tomorrow.
But you can let them know that we the budget, the working budget, operational budget they'll already have,
Well, you're gonna have to let them know they have to modify,
Yeah.
they're gonna have to revise their agenda.
and the capital is gonna be on hold for a little bit. And I would just suggest for that Beth, when you feel you're done, let Alan know, and you call a meeting at that point.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll set up another date for one more capital outlay meeting.
6 o'clock,
Look of joy in their
night of
faces.
town meeting.
Yeah, that's been done.
I know, I've been in it
They now
somewhere.
get
We're gonna
fist
have
fight
to,
zones.
we're gonna have to meet at 5, because we have to meet with FinCom at 6.
Oh, that's,
Yeah, there's usually a FinCom that night.
yeah, that's happened more than you think.
Well, we do a FinCom just before meeting, cause there's always something last minute that happened 2 days ago that, you know, needs to be addressed, and we have that last minute stuff for the FinCom meeting. Usually not very long, but there's always a couple of things that we have to go over and discuss. We did it last year, the year before, so.
Mr. Chairman, did you have any other items you wanted to bring up that were not anticipated
I did
48
not.
hours in advance?
And tomorrow, the next meeting date of March 8th is incorrect. At this point, we're gonna still plan on the 15th at 6 PM, but I will confirm that and I will send an email to everyone.
Yeah, I got one question.
Yes, sir.
For the future, I don't know if this is our place or not, but I think we need to come up with a checks and balance so this mess doesn't happen again. Not to say anything bad about you guys, but we thought, you know, Meg was doing everything the correct way. I think we need a contingency plan and checks and balance, and I don't know if that's our place or if it's, I mean, we have auditors, but we know what the.
I don't
auditors-
disagree with you, but my confusion would come into play of, if Sue said, you know, this is everything that I have and this is 100% correct and we've done all of this, and then somebody comes in behind her and says, oh my God, this wasn't even close, how do we know? I mean, we have to trust the person in the seat.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that up until the last couple of years, which I think have been an aberration, we were like clockwork, as
We
Alan
were.
said, of being done by the middle of January. And I would suspect, with a full year under their belts, that we should not run into anything like this. If we go back, again, the select board policy was always, we want the timetable to be that we're basically done by, you know, mid-January or February. So there was plenty of time for, you know, we never had to worry about stuff after that period.
Don't forget, this committee also had the luxury of, we had Michael who had answers, we had Meg who we could sit back and say, what was this for? And she, remember 2 years ago we voted, remember 3 years ago we did, and we had the luxury of that availability. At this point in time, we don't have that luxury. And they have the opposite of the luxury because they're trying to scramble and find out, first of all, what the hell are we talking about? And she's trying to decipher, Sue's trying to decipher what she's looking at. And the accounting, I guess accounting is not all the same, and she's finding stuff that was just not,
It's all the same, but it's not in the same places or.
There you
it's
go,
not
I
been
just
done the
got-
same way
But
by
it sounds to
everybody.
me like you've really pretty much
she's done a lot of
get
digging.
your arms around things at this point.
Free cash is usually, in my opinion, certified before the end of October.
Yeah.
I didn't start until the end of September.
Yeah.
And then to have to try to, you know, figure out a software that I'm not familiar with.
Pat?
You know, just an observation as to, over the last few years here, there's been some unique and bizarre organizational issues
Oh, no doubt.
that have gone on here. And when things like that happen, it kind of lends itself to the wheels coming off the organization sometimes, and not easily seen sometimes. And I think that's a lot of what happened.
I agree.
Mr. Chair, one comment. So to Ron, to your point, I've worked with a dozen finance directors, and let me give you assurance that she knows her stuff. And she's dug in with a situation that she came into that I couldn't make sense of it. She is making sense of it. So, again, we're new here. I don't know if I'll be here beyond my 6 months, but at least for that 6 months, I feel totally confident in what she's doing. And we'll get there. We'll get there for town meeting. Rest assured, it's gonna happen. And everybody will move on. to the next chapter.
So,
Thank you.
I think she's done a great job. I really have. In fact, I said to her the other day that I'm glad that you stayed. Because there was, obviously, I was concerned that when the changes were made, that she was gonna be part of that change also, and I didn't wanna see that, because I thought she was doing it good. So, personally, I think the two of you, to have come in, and this is the hard part. Bob came in for January 1st, completely thrown under the bus. Sue came in September, about to be thrown under the bus. And it's pretty tough to come in right in the middle of budget season. I mean, this guy walked through the door not knowing where the extra light switches were, and yet he was in the middle of budget season. So, and I think all in all, they've done a pretty good job. So, that's my comment.
I agree. You guys have
Let's
any-
take a vote on it. No.
Alan, like I said before, Ron Griffin was a big play in this with me.
Yeah.
And Ron's done a good job, he has. I think that he's, I actually have to give him credit and an apology, because I thought he was more, I thought he was less conservative than he seems to have turned out to be, so I'm very, very happy for that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
can I
sir.
make a comment or a suggestion? I've been listening to all the conversations going on here tonight, and you know, to the point of checks and balances, you find yourself in a unique situation, but you are an advisory committee to the selectmen. One of the things you might wanna do, I don't think the tempers started getting hot here, and, you know, Sue and Bob might have felt a little attacked, and I could see that. Even though I don't think anybody felt anything personal towards them. But, they're doing the best they can, obviously, but my suggestion is, maybe send a letter to the select board and tell them you might want to investigate and set up new financial protocols with redundant systems and redundant people that know the system. So when someone leaves, you're not devastated. That might be holding things all to themselves. So what the details of that might be, I don't know. But we had an issue in the school department that one person was trained on a certain program that we paid for to do a certain task. This person was out sick for, you know, several weeks. That program couldn't be run because no one else knew how to run it. So I was insistent that someone else be trained on it, and the rest of the committee was as well, and now we don't have that problem again. So I'm sure you understand my gist here, but you might wanna make that suggestion to the select board just going forward.
You
I
don't
think
need
that
to,
Sue's
we're already
making
taking
full
those
use.
steps to
Oh,
make
good,
sure
okay.
that people are getting trained in proper
Yeah, I
places.
was gonna say, I think that Sue's making full use of the staff that she has now, unlike her predecessor.
No, that's good, but, it might be good to enshrine it though, in a policy or something with the select board, because if you are, you know, not here someday, someone new, excuse me, might do something completely different.
Yep.
That just makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
can I make a motion to adjourn?
Sure can.
Thank you.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second?
Motion made and seconded, third and fourth to adjourn. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are out.